Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Doctor's Lounge. Come on in.
Come on in.
We have a great episode for you guys today.
We're going to be speaking with Marc Coronel.
He's a very accomplished speaker, but he also has a personal journey. So he has a rare kidney disorder and was able to get a kidney transplant by going through social media. And it's a very inspiring, powerful story. And we're excited to share that with you guys.
Let's check it out.
Welcome, everyone, to the Doctor's Lounge.
Welcome, welcome. Come on in.
I mean, I'm just so honored to be on this podcast to share the patient's experience. So now I'm literally just helping people navigate the healthcare system based on chronic kidney disease or anything that has to do with kidneys, right? Diabetes and high blood pressure are now some of the topics that a lot of the organizations are starting to talk about. So I'm tapping into that as well.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so I'm a healthcare consultant. I work with different firms. I mean, I'm just all around when it comes to the patient's perspective and what patients would look towards when doing telehealth medicine, when trying to navigate these apps, especially when it goes from a wide variety of age groups, right? So that's essentially what I do in a nutshell. I'm all over the place in this industry, specifically kidney disease.
Wow, that is such good work that you're doing. I mean, I will have to say, so Marc and I, we actually met in a very special place. We met in DC in a TEDx platform. I had the pleasure of sharing a TED Talk as well, but this is not about me. This is about Marc, and he shared a beautiful story about his journey. And I don't want to speak for you, but he had received a kidney transplant, and it was so touching, so moving, and yeah, it really, I just said I had to meet this guy. I know that he's doing a lot of good, and
So I was 26 on a routine physical. My father was in the military and I was covered under the military insurance. And on my 26th birthday, it would have stopped. But that was also that point where I wanted to turn pro as a professional boxer. And I went into a routine physical and I remember telling the doctor, I said, "Doc, you have nothing to worry about. I'm in shape. I'm fit. I've trained my whole life. There was no, that's what I wanted to do, be an athlete for the rest of my life in hopes that when I retire, I can be a coach." So she said, "Sure, after some blood work, if I don't call you back in 2 days, go ahead and pursue that career in trying to be a professional athlete." But I get that call 2 days later. And it was really, really shocking to me because I knew fitness. I had protein shakes, right? I was drinking 3 liters of water a day. I was making sure that I did what the athletes did. But that phone call changed my trajectory in to what I do now in the healthcare space. She said, "Well, we're gonna have to bring you back in. Your creatinine, which is a lab result that shows how your kidney functions are working, right? Your EGFRs and all these labs specifically with kidney disease were a bit elevated, a bit low, and then I started to develop anemia." She said, "We need to bring you back. I want to run a biopsy, and we also want to do an ultrasound to see how your kidneys are doing."
let me ask you, Marc, were you experiencing like symptoms at this point?
That's a good question. And, I get asked that a lot as patients as well. Like, I feel great. I feel great, even with end stage renal disease, because there is no signs and symptoms till the very end, right? So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, then end stage renal and still didn't have any signs and symptoms. But now looking back, I did have something for those patients who are listening called something called proteinuria. And that was something that I bypassed so far behind because that wasn't something that made me feel fatigued. It didn't make me feel any form of illness or sickness. All I knew was I was urinating and it was foamy, right? And for those who don't know what that looks like, if you look and you were to go into a bar and you hit a tap of beer, there's foam at the very top of that beer. That's what my urine looked like.
You could get that through, taking a lot of vitamins.
That's yeah.
This-
Right,
yeah.
right, right. Right. So that was my only signs and symptom, right? I didn't have any fatigue. I wasn't tired because I was in the gym so frequently. I would mistake my kidney disease for thinking I was just tired from
Mhm.
doing a hard workout. So it was a catch 22 for me, right? Oh yeah, doc, I'm a bit tired. Have you been feeling tired? And these are some of the questions that she was asking where are you a bit tired? And I said, a little bit, but that's from working out. I ran 6 miles, 3 miles a day this morning, and
Mm.
right. So for me, it was really no distinction of is this kidney failure? Or is this just because I'm working my body a bit harder than normal?
I think the other part also is a lot of times patients and people in general, we make like, oh, it's just, I didn't sleep well last night. We make excuses a lot and it causes us to push things off because like, oh, no, no, I'm sure it's fine. I'll be okay later on. And it just builds up. And especially the one thing I wanted to go into also for people who may not know, you mentioned there's the different stages of kidney disease. So it's stage one, and it's based on certain markers and certain numbers, but like they go through the four stages and it becomes end stage. And I know you, I know you know this really well. And we went into it, but like sometimes that's the part that it's like we try to keep because sometimes if you can prevent it from going a little bit further, that's the best thing we can do. Because once you move forward, it's you can't kind of go back as much. So
Right.
you
Exactly.
didn't have any symptoms, but it just based on the markers, it was
It's
the
not really for chronic kidney disease.
Right, right. But here's also another thing with this catch 22 of having kidney disease is your support system then becomes, well, you don't look sick. And you hear that very, very frequently, right? And I'm like, well, the doctor says I look sick. I don't feel sick. And my whole support system, my family, my friends, well, what does kidney disease look like?
Right.
Right. And I was walking around with this thought of, well, I look in the mirror, I don't look sick, so I might not be sick, and the lab results are just playing with my head, right?
This is with your head. Yeah.
And we say this a lot, like, sometimes we see in our patients who have a serious illness, sometimes their mind is ahead of their body. It's
Right.
you don't right, like, you feel like you can do XYZ, but really you need to slow down because there is an illness internal.
Correct. Correct. And I think, especially in my condition where I had such a rare kidney disease, it was really hard to find community. And I can talk about that later on through the journey because with saying you have something so rare,
Mm.
where do I find the people who
Yeah.
have this type of illness?
What does this look like? What am I going to, is this normal? Is this not normal?
Sounds like it's can be a lonely journey.
100%. And what I mean by a lonely journey, and it's really interesting because the first stage is obviously the diagnosis, right? And then you're hit with this. Well, Mark, I just want to inform you that you were diagnosed with focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, which as a patient, it's very, very strong to hear a word like that because as a patient, we think that's a death sentence at that point, right? It's just something that, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And I went through that stage, the DABDA stage, the denial, the anger, the bargaining, depression. And you were talking about we met at this in Washington, DC on the TED Talk. And I think that's when I realized I've accepted my journey for what I've already gone through to help those who can look to something that I couldn't do prior.
Yeah. Mm.
And I think it's so powerful also for you sharing the story because it's, like you said, someone healthy, peak physical athlete going there and it hits in because
And you're
it
young.
it connects with people because I think a lot of times too everyone's going through something and we don't always know what other people are going through. And so like you said, just looking, it's like, oh, who's to say this person's sick or this person isn't sick? But it's powerful to know that, yeah, they may be sick and even to like not ignore it because it's like, oh, we feel okay, or people are kind of like, oh, the doctors don't know what they're talking about. It's fine. And it's just like then we get to points where it's like, well, we've moved a lot further now. What do we do now?
Right, right. So, and I can also be a person of guilt with that, right? Like the doctors don't really know, but I what I realized about this was as I started to understand the science behind it, I was like, oh wow, I know how to lower my creatinine levels. And there's a difference. There's a compliant and non-compliant patient, right? Like, well, you're going to take all those medications. I actually need that based on what I've looked at and seen other patients say. I feel better now. I'm not going to take my immunosuppressant medications, and they go right back into being on dialysis, right? So I'm a very, very compliant patient. And go ahead. I'm so you
I appreciate you saying that because I think, and having, been through my own health challenges, there's definitely like a will that needs to be there in terms of from the patient standpoint to get better, but also that trust that needs to be there in the medical system.
right,
Doing all the things. I do want to push back a little bit on the word compliant because
right,
the hospitals, we've been in trouble for using those words because some people, they're not non-compliant. They just don't have access to care.
correct, correct,
So they're not doing they're not taking
right.
medicine because they're, not able to get to the pharmacy to get the medication. So there has been a lot, just so you know, a lot of discussion about language in terms
Language, right, right,
of
right,
what we say, but
Now we sometimes try to say non-adherent.
right, right,
Right. But part of it, what I think also is the thing that, like, because I had someone just the other day where it's like, oh, they're not taking this antibiotic, but then when I ask, like, oh, what's going on? They're like, well, it causes diarrhea. I'm feeling good. Is there something else? And it's like, initially, some doctors, some teams are like, well, they're not taking it. Find out, do they want to be treated? As opposed to like, well, what? Like, have we asked them why? Like,
yeah, we
sometimes
gotta
people,
communicate,
and
right?
it's,
That's it. And that's also, you know, within my journey,
Mm.
I had gone through 15 nephrologists, 5 different transplant centers. At from the age of 26, now 40, I have seen a lot, right? I talk about how I take 15 medications a day. That's 105 a week, 420 a month, 5,040 pills a year. At 9 in the morning and 9 at night, there is no, I can be speaking to the most important person in the world. If that alarm clock goes off,
Right.
excuse me 1 second, I need to take my medication. And what I mean by that is just that. Like, I did so much work to get this kidney transplant using social media, having 33 people come forward to try donating a kidney. This was the story, right? I cannot let down the people who pushed me to get to this point, right? Because I'd be letting them down if I said, I'm not going to take my medications today because I don't feel like it. But I also have to remember that the people who did come forward said, you got this. I know you do. You just have to believe you can get through it. And that was a constant mantra
Yeah.
of me saying, all right, I got this. Because it's very, very easy to give up, especially with a chronic illness, being on dialysis 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and not being able to urinate.
I cannot
Yeah.
imagine, what that quality of life is like. And I really actually want to touch back in this point of, compliance or just like the will that you've had. And you talk about the support, but I'm really interested to know like more about your motivation, but also like the trust. Like, what is it that you trust because you've done the research and you're like, yes, these are the doctors? Or if you can talk about why did you have to go through, right, navigate through so many physicians, but where was that trust in the medical system that you have developed? Because I think that's something, at least now in our zeitgeist, sometimes it's hard for patients to trust doctors. So if you can speak a little bit about that.
It's so interesting now that I know how to build, it's like building a team.
Mhm.
You have to build a team. I think as patients, when we're first diagnosed, we don't know how to properly communicate because of our emotions, right?
Yes.
Our emotions get the best of us to not really, because I can speak well, but if you put me through a high level stress situation, I'll feel like you or the person receiving it might feel that, oh my God, they're coming at me so strong. But in actuality, I think it's because patients are scared.
I was gonna
right?
say, yeah, I was gonna
Right.
what emotion and fear, definitely.
Right. 100%. I think the fear factor comes in, and having to face the reality of, oh my God, dialysis. I've seen so many. I did my research, and oh my God, this is 5 to 10 years is the longest time someone stays on it. But that's not really necessarily true now that I've gone through that.
Right.
Right. And eh, navigating it now, and what I would tell my younger self,
Mhm.
and this is what it is, because I always tell myself, what would I tell my younger self navigating it for someone who's brand new? And you have to learn how to develop your team and trust the process, that this is what they do. But sometimes you got to also realize that this person might not be your teammate, and you can find someone that fits your personality. I
Mhm.
didn't realize that it was a personality thing with doctors,
Yeah.
that I was like, you're going to be my doctor,
Yeah.
right? Because you're hearing me as a whole and not as a sign and symptom. And that played such a huge role to me. I don't know if you can see in the back, but that got me bronze, that got me to run a 200-mile race, that got me, because I started to say, Doc, can you get me here?
Wow.
And I want you, and this is how I want to do it. And this is one thing I didn't know how to do it, because the questions I asked before are completely different now. It was, am I going to be able to see you in 6 months, and am I going to be okay? To, Doc, I already know I have this. But here's my goals now. I want to compete in a tournament. I want to
Mm.
run a 200-mile race for kidney disease. I want to do a lot of things that I couldn't do normally.
I'm so glad, right, that I mean, to me, it seems like you, through this journey, have like enhanced your communication. And, in palliative care, that is actually part of our role. Like while people are going through serious illness, and oftentimes they have a terminal illness, not always, we really try to advocate patients to communicate what are their goals, knowing that some may be realistic and some may not be,
Mhm.
but how
Right.
best get them there. Really what we do. And I'm so glad you brought up this self-advocacy too, because I think that's really where it starts. Like we get training as doctors on communication, but to me, communication is a two-way street. I can be very articulate and tell you all the things, but the patient also, right, has to be able to communicate their goals and ask questions. So I actually developed this mnemonic, or we did. We sort of want to help people flip the script, and all you got to remember your ABCDs. A is ask for a family meeting. And what that means is, who are your support systems? Right. Bring all the people together and make sure the doctors are communicating with them as well.
And a lot of times for a family meeting, like in the hospitals, we'll have who are the different relevant doctor teams that need to be all together. So
Be
like
on the same page.
nephrology,
Yeah.
infectious disease, cardiology, like these different doctors who are each seeing a patient, are each writing their own notes, but they're not always all communicating together. And so we get mixed messages. So it's like knowing as a patient to know we need to have a family meeting on Wednesday. And I want to talk to the different teams and setting it up, and it leads to better results because everyone can kind of
Right.
the same page.
That's A. B is actually big picture. So, like you said, what are the goals? Really communicating that part of it. And yeah,
Even asking, so like I will often tell patients like when someone's telling you some information, ask like what's the best case scenario, what's the worst case, and what's the most likely. Because sometimes doctors will say in very broad strokes, this is treatable. Well, but okay, but what is the best case? What's the worst case and what's the most
yeah,
likely? So then people are like, oh, puts a frame of reference so you can understand what we're looking at. Because sometimes people hear like after a stroke, it's the best case is you're going to be in a nursing home forever. The worst, and then they're like, wait, that's the best case. Well,
Right.
that changes what I'm wanting as opposed to like best case, I'm going to run out of here. Like, no, no,
Right. Right.
C is concern. So, like you said, what are first of all, what are my own worries, but what are your worries? So just kind of opening up that conversation. And then D are like deal breakers, meaning like what's really important to me. Like you said, you wanted to be able to run marathons. Like that's your that is your fine line. And cool. How can we get you there?
Because I think once the patient lets the doctors know, and if it's a doctor who's connecting and getting along with you, okay, I can tell you, I might not be able to do this part, but I can do this. Or okay, like, doc, I don't want to be on this medicine because it's giving me this side effect. Okay, well, now that I know that, I can tell you we could do this instead, or like, it allows for fluidity and
Right.
back and forth, that we can find what works for you. Because, like, every individual, we joke around, it's like an N of one. That means it's like they're a one of one situation. Just because this worked for someone else, it may not work for you. And come in with that mindset, and we're communicating, I can tailor it to fit you. Versus if I'm like, hey,
Right.
what we can do. Well, if that doesn't work for you, that, like, it's good to know that and to find what works for everyone.
Right. Right. That's exactly it. I mean, you guys, this is exactly what I like what I preach to a lot of these patients, right? Is that, well, I can't get the referral to go here. I mean, let's do this. It's one step at a time. It's one daily step, right? When I was diagnosed, I wanted to get a kidney transplant before I got onto dialysis. I had to set that goal. One of the really interesting things in my situation was I used my athletic training to fight for my life. Does that make sense? The 6 a.m. runs in the morning became my doctor's call in the afternoon. My dialysis treatment was my 3 hours in the gym training.
Mm,
Does that make sense? My medications that I needed to
yeah.
take, from protein shakes then to taking those pills.
Sounds like right, like your sort of whole mindset, about it.
And I think it's the structure. So what I am hearing, what fits, like, for a high-end athlete, it's very regimented, of being aware of the time, the value of it, and not wasting it. So, like, okay, I need to do this. And you took that mindset to attack the disease and the process, so you could figure out, like, okay, this is what I need to do, so this is what we're gonna do it. Because it's like, it wasn't just like, whatever happens, happens. I'm gonna make
No, no,
a regimented, okay.
Let let me ask you, like, okay, of course, right? You are an athlete and you've been training in the big leagues. It's not even right. So you have this sort of understanding, right, of that approach, it sounds like. Was it like, I guess I'm trying to understand the emotion behind it. Like, was it fear of dying? The ego, right? Not in a negative way, but like the ego and pride of like doing things, like what was the like
Rocky.
all of it. Lucky.
Rocky. I needed something to have me snap back into, you go into this fight or flight mode, right? I fought my whole life. And it was, my opponent is across that ring who's kidney disease. And one thing my trainer used to always tell me is that, look, this person's trying to take food off of your table. You better make sure that doesn't happen. And what was interesting is that I used that to my illness. And he would always tell me, he said, I want you, and he would see when I'd come into the gym depressed. He said, I want you to go to the bathroom, lock yourself, and don't come out until you win. Right. So every day that I went into dialysis and I came home and I was a bit flustered of my treatment options, it was like this thing got me today, but I just have to wake up. Like Tyson says, you get up, just keep getting up. And that's what build that resilience of, okay, I got defeated today, but I can also win, right? Transplant is a treatment option.
Yeah.
I lost 5 years of my life, right? Transplant, 2 years, and then COVID hit. So you give a patient a second chance at life. It's like, well, what can I do now? Right? It's really, what can I do? What can I appreciate in the terms of how can I grow within those 5 years that I lost and tried catching up to it now?
Mm, mm. So inspiring.
It is, and it's also I feel like when you accomplish something and you are able to achieve and you see all that you're capable of, it's also like, "What can't I do?" Like,
Yeah.
what will I conquer now? Because it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you've done so much, and I think it's that the mindset that drives you to keep going that allows you to persevere and overcome, because, like, you
Right.
people, it's very easy to kinda feel defeated, and what I was most inspired hearing is that part of that. Yeah, like each day, okay, I got my ass whooped today, but maybe tomorrow it's gonna be a little bit different. And you can
Right.
push that it's not like, oh, it's done and it's over. It's like, okay, that's fine.
Thing that you wish could have been better, like made the process and
Oh, 100%. I wish I knew that vulnerability became my biggest strength. Asking for a kidney the time that I did, I had to look inward and express it outward like this is who I am.
I'm curious, like, did the doctors, like medical community, were they like trying to help you through that process or what was that like?
Into trying to get a kidney,
Mhm.
it was very brief. It was, what do I need to know to talk about kidney disease? They can give me the general information. But again, I'm a patient. I can only talk from a patient's perspective of what I'm going through. And I think just showing the journey every day of this is what it's like to be on dialysis. This is what it's like. I'm losing the color of my skin tone because I can't filter through my kidneys anymore. I think it was really amazing. And I wish I was able to talk about this in Washington, D.C. Within those people, there were people flying in from out of state coming in just to test, which shows that humanity is amazing, that you just don't know who's willing to help. And the only way you'll find out is asking for it.
Exactly. And it's scary because, like you're saying, to ask, you're making yourself vulnerable, but then sometimes it can amaze you in good ways. And it's just one of those that, like, the possibilities of it.
Yeah. That
Right,
is such, I mean, I agree with you, like in the medical world, there's right, like people willing to give any right transplant. That's such a big thing. And I think despite, of course, there's so much, negativity and chaos, but at the same time, processes work, things work. In the medical field, we've had so much advancement. At the same time,
right,
people are, worried and fearful of things right now, but at the same time, like our life expectancy from years ago has increased so much because of modern medicine, so
right, right.
we are living longer. So the process works to an extent.
I wanted to ask, because I know you're saying you went through 15 different nephrologists and 5 different transfer centers. What were things that made you decide, I need someone new on my team? Like, what were in your head when you needed to make a switch? What was it that drove you to make that? And what was it that you learned to look for? Like, what
Mhm.
did you see as a good team member for, let's say, people who maybe aren't as athletic or as parts of teams that, like, not knowing what to find in their team people?
It's a good question. Very, very good question. I think the honest truth is I was seeing if they were willing to go an extra mile to try healing me instead of treating me. I already accepted the fact that I have kidney disease. If we can keep me stable here for another 6 months so I can try to get a kidney, then you're my teammate. But if you're going to start pushing me more, and I realized every doctor I went to was a different type of medication, a different type of medication. So this our talk in DC, yo, if you guys tune in and you guys are listening in, watch that as well because I show certain things on the medications that were given to me in the first 6 months. And I had changed doctors multiple times. And I'm like, my body's reacting very differently to this. Who am I going to find that I can say, I'll take your word on that? Let's start doing it. Because I'm very in tune as athletes. We know when we're injured. We know when we're tired. We're just so zoned in as an individual that even medications you can see and feel the signs and symptoms of tremors,
What doesn't work?
what doesn't. Now, doc, are you sure? And what is your comeback to that? because this is my story,
Yeah.
right? And if it's something that doesn't make sense to me after doing that, I just say, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to go a second option. And I always did that in my journey, was get that second and third option, but not so that I can dilute my head and be what's the word, confused, right?
Mhm.
When we get these different options, I didn't want to be confused. I want to see if it was in the same route and if this person knew how to talk my language, because the humanity part comes out still. You breathe, and you went to the schooling to do a lot of these things that you do, but it's the connection that I had with these doctors that some me personally was voided. I didn't feel,
Yeah.
you know?
I think that's what palliative care focuses on, like connection and energy. I think some what you were saying is people's energies, but
Yeah.
go ahead. Like,
No, I just for me, it's that big part of it is the communication.
100%.
If you tell me you're having a side effect, if I'm like, it's fine, I didn't hear you, and then you're not gonna trust me the same level versus if I'm like, wait, tell me more, maybe I can look into it. Maybe like we don't always have to have every answer, but if
right,
you're listening and caring and trying to meet you where you're at. Because for me too, like I feel like I'll get more buy-in with someone if I'm really listening and interacting. Because like I used to do primary care stuff before, where it's like, okay, if I'm trying to get someone to quit smoking, it's like if I'm just like preaching at them, that's not necessarily going to work. It has to be some level of trying to understand, like, okay, oh, this is how you're coping with stress because this is the one little break you have in your day. Well, maybe we can do something else to help you get that feeling of comfort because you're looking for a feeling of comfort. Maybe I can help find that. Or, if someone's telling me about a side effect, if I'm not listening to them, what kind of, you're not going to keep, like, we lose all that trust. Like I've saying, like, it's all
Right,
about that trust. And
right,
I can be as highly educated as anything, but if you don't trust me, then it's useless. Like it's this person thing. If
right,
medicine, but you don't take it, then like, did I really like? Am I doing it,
right.
or am I just kind of like very for showy? Like, oh well, I know a lot.
Right, 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 and those are the ones that oh, I got this, I got that, I got that, but you lose the human, and I think a lot of patients complain about that when we're in our when our within our communities. Really, I would give examples of how doctors treated me. Wow, they would treat you like that. That's amazing. Like, who is this person, right? Because within the healthcare system, this is so interesting, and I was able to figure out the wordings to it. Was as patients, we also have our own Yelp review internally. That's not social media. That's not driven off of what we look at on the computer. It's just the one-on-one connection that we have with these patients, right? Even with myself, I would sit. Can we get offline and I'll talk to you a bit? Let me. Can I just ask you a couple questions with the doctor that you're actually seeing? And what are your thoughts on it? Because the interesting about patient to patient conversation is, how are you doing today? There is no more explanation. We can look at their eyes and say, I understand. That's what's so unique about patient to patient conversation, is the community, common in unity, right? We just want to have peace because we go through so much with the medications, with the doctor visits, having to find referrals and figuring out who do we talk to, right? I know that I got 15 minutes with a doctor now, right? How productive can we make that 15 minutes? Because this is my life when I walk out of here.
Yeah,
And I found it very interesting that sometimes that 15 minutes was the best 15 minutes of my life, because that doctor knew how
mm,
to communicate, which is what we're talking about now. And it's really amazing that you guys are saying.
right, give you the solutions or like the things that you need for your.
Right.
I will say a similar. So like, I don't know if I've we've dealt with some health issues
Yeah.
personally recently, and it was eye opening to me that like we as
Both doctors, I was really sick and it was really hard to navigate the healthcare system for us.
or even it's like we were find ways, and I'm like, okay, we were able to do this because we knew the levers to pull, the things to do, the ways to make shit happen.
Right.
I don't know if every person does, can, or would, and it's like heartbreaking and eye-opening that, like, it shouldn't be that way, but then it is, and that's kind of what was that motivation of, like, sharing those like, the things to know that, like you said, like, knowing you only have 15 minutes, so how like, coming in
Have
as a patient
questions ready,
ready,
right?
and then
Like,
also having a doctor who knows how to make good use of their time because
Right.
they teach us, but not everyone always gets it right away. Of like how to make this efficient and useful, so that everyone leaves feeling like I have a clear idea what the next steps are, when I'm coming back, why I need to come back, what I need to get done before then,
yeah.
and what's the point and the reason it's happening.
And that's
Because
the thing, like, yeah, like even when I was in the hospital, I was surprised how many doctors, like, they did not communicate like the thought process or the, next steps or plan of care. And obviously that's my language. I would understand it. So
oh,
that was really frustrating.
they didn't even introduce themselves when they came into the damn room, and it was
Right.
a lot of that, like little things, but
Little things, yeah.
like who was that who just came in?
Right.
I'm
And
grateful.
you know what's so interesting is that we are so hyper aware of those things as patients, right? Like I appreciate bedside manner. You know how you guys go into a restaurant, is the bathroom clean? Let me see these forks.
Yeah.
For me, it's hospital. It really is. I mean, I've gone through it so much, and small gestures like that go very, very far,
Very far. And that was
right?
my next question. Like, so what do you think people did well in the healthcare system for you?
So one doctor, I would drop any doctor for this doctor. He was my doctor during my transplant journey, who got me ready for these things. Is he read my chart prior to coming in, than doing it there. And I really, really enjoyed that because it opened up more of a conversation. Like, Mark, I just read your notes based on our lab. And it can just be something like that, right? He didn't have to, he logged in just to put my medications on what I need refills for. But he came in doing his homework,
Yeah.
right? And I really, really appreciate that because you took time between 15 minutes to take 2 minutes out of your time to get to your next 15, not doing it while I was in the office because my time is ticking and I can see that, right? Okay, Mark, this is cool. So I really, really appreciated doctors who did that for me. Other people might be different, right? But coming in pre and just talking to me as the whole picture you were talking about, right? Like, I learned that just because the room is burning doesn't mean that, don't focus on the room, focus on the whole house,
Mm,
right? You
mhm.
have to focus, your house is on fire, not just the room, but focus on the whole picture. And I think doctors who do that, I really, really enjoy having conversations with. First, this is just me though.
I
Yeah.
think it gives that level of I think it gives that level of respect as well, because
100%.
part of it, like, you feel like and they already know, so then you can have more of a conversation because you're prepared. Like, you came in, like, I know who I'm seeing, what it's for, you're in there, so then when someone's like, "Wait, what did you do?" It's like, "Bruh,
Well,
what are we doing?"
Yes,
So it's like
exactly, exactly.
of like palliative, we do get,
yeah,
we try to communicate not just verbal, but nonverbal, like eye contact, sitting down, right? Not standing in the room like I gotta go 2 minutes in. I do think that it is, in the other side, and this is terrible. I think doctors come in to the job feeling like that's what they want to do, but the system designs it in a way where sometimes it's really difficult. And it's not making excuses at all. I also think it's a lot of people are burnt out.
yeah,
I love that. I love that this conversation is happening because this is a great conversation for patients to hear,
yeah,
right? Because that was a vulnerable statement. And I don't think patients hear that often. And as patients, we need to, that's where I come in as middle person to try to help balance that out, going to DC, lobbying for all this stuff, because at the end of the day, you're still a person, right? You're still a person. You have same. You go through emotions. You go through all of this and that. And what's interesting is some of these patients, this is life and death, what comes out of your mouth.
yeah.
Yeah.
right? It's really life and death with what comes out, but not knowing where you just came from to come in here and be composed to share that information. So thank you for sharing that. I was so happy you guys did that, by the way. I was like, yeah, this is amazing.
Well, what you're saying is amazing.
Well, I think part of it, it's like we said, we have to all from all sides kind of realize like we're all humans and people, and like everyone, like patients are scared. So sometimes it may come off as angry, it may come off as upset but it's like coming from fear. And like from the physician's perspective, like we're all like everyone went into this field to help
Want to
people.
help, yeah.
Right,
It's like, and I even remind myself sometimes,
Palliative is also like we're trying to make the best out of a worse situation.
right,
When people are dying, it's like we don't want people to die, but we're trying to reframe. You know, because it's inevitable, we're just trying to make it positive, but make it meaningful.
right,
And
right,
so sometimes people's fears will be a barrier to make it be meaningful, which is,
and
that speaks to a bigger issue about,
right,
normalizing death
yeah.
in our society and culture. But
Oh yeah, and it's like making the most of that time. But then, like, I was also thinking from like with regards to like teaching students and residents and people that like I at one point I had to be like, they all want to do a good job. Like no one ever comes in wanting to be bad at having these
yeah.
conversations. It's just they're not used to it. So then okay, let me try to teach, explain it in a way, say it in a jokey way that maybe we'll get through so they'll get
Oh,
the
he
line.
loves jokes.
Well,
He
and it's like,
loves to joke.
but like part of it, I'm like, if it sticks, my whole point for like when I'm like talking and teaching someone in my field is like, okay, I want you to get why this is important and why we go through it. And like, I had an attending who was like once, don't learn from your own mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes. Like, it's the same kind of thing. Like, I'm teaching is like, hey, don't say this way because it will cause a problem. It will be like it may be taken the wrong way because there's some person's vulnerable. It may be, like there's certain things that like we're not always aware, and so it just comes out, and then it's like, okay, so let's prepare for that. Let's kind of think ahead. But yeah, it's like that knowing that everyone's there because someone's feeling bad and we want them to feel better. And it's like, okay, like, we're coming at it from an end of like, how can I help? And we have to realize they're coming at it from like, oh my God, what's going on? Like you said, you gave me a diagnosis that's like 8 different words. I've never heard half of them. What is this?
right.
Like
You
that's
know,
intimidating.
what's so interesting? And while I'm hearing you say this, I'm like, wow. And you said, what was that click moment? I went back to that question, and I was speaking to a friend of mine who was a therapist, and I said, "Hey, let me ask you something. How do I get over this?" He said, "You need to face trauma head on and take on that emotion head on. Don't hide from it. Don't suppress it.
Mhm.
Face it head on, so you can feel what that feels like. And once you do that, you'll be able to start walking and taking
Move
that step
forward.
moving forward." And I think for me, that's what really it was very simple. It was two things: is facing trauma head on and just being vulnerable.
Wow.
Everything happened with all these things that I have because I was vulnerable to ask for help, and I was able to face a no again that wasn't an organ. So if you told me no, I understand. I'll find another way to do so. Because getting rejected 32 times, 33 times, it's not like asking for, did my loan get approved? No, I'm sorry. Someone made a better offer. This is life and death. If I'm going to be on dialysis for the next 5 to 8 to 10 years, right? So being able to see that perspective. And every time I got to know is just facing that trauma, that emotion head on, really helped me heal quicker.
Wow.
And this is what I tell patients is you have to well, I don't know, it's so painful, and it will be, because this journey is exactly like an EKG. You'll have your ups, you'll have your downs, and it'll do this and it'll go up and down. Just know that Once it flatlines, just know that it's done, right? Like this is our conversations. Our conversations are very, very detailed in depth. Just understand if your EKG goes up and down, your OPQ, all of that stuff makes sense with just life itself.
Right.
You're gonna hear positives and you're gonna hear negatives. You don't learn nothing from succeeding. You learn it from failing.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I actually just read about this. Like somebody said, the next no I hear is great because it's closer to my yes. You know?
100%.
Yeah.
32 no's led me to the one yes. Her HLA match type matched more to me than my actual biological sister. She matched 5 out of 6. My sister matched me 3 out of 6. Imagine. And with that HLA type, with that specific test, it would tell me if this would reject if they put that kidney in me, especially with FSGS with a 50% chance of rejection,
Mhm.
which is with everything, but it was even higher having a rare kidney disease like this within the spectrum.
That's amazing. You crushed it, Mark.
Uh,
Crushed it, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But I just want to share that when patients do hear this, because I'm going to share this. You only fail when you fail to try. We say this all the time that, I tell this to a couple of my friends who are, it's better here in the gym that it's hard than in a hospital when you're fighting for your life.
I remember growing up, my mom, I used to hear, she'd say, like, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And it kind of stuck with me that, like, okay, yeah, like, let me try to, like, fix that mindset. But, like, I gotta say, it's inspiring because it's a lot easier to do that when things are okay. It's hard to do that, like you said, in the fight, like
In
deep
the
in that
stress.
moment and like keep going. So that's,
Mark, what is your one sort of takeaway for patients today?
What success can show you, rock bottom can. I learned how to build a foundation at the most lowest point of my life. And it took a lot of getting away from the word ego
Mhm.
Mm.
and transferring that to vulnerability. Just know that you will get a lot further by opening up to community, opening up to yourself, not suppressing everything, and just take it one step at a time. And I never thought I would be able to be on a TEDx talk talking about a patient's journey, especially with kidney disease.
Right. It's not the talk that you, yeah, thought you were going to give.
I am committed to a purpose and a mission, not an organization. The purpose of awareness for kidney patients is my why. And that's why I do the things that I do, to wake up with a purpose clock, the alarm clock of knowing their struggle and not saying something about it.
Yeah.
Right? I would be selfish to do that because I was a student in the medical. As a patient, I was a student to what doctors were telling me. I was learning, but I was also trying to heal myself based on the information that was given. Science saved my life. It saved my life. I can't. No, no. Let's see about this. They're going to probably do some more clinical trials or whatever the case is. They get
Right.
more data on it. Let me research on this a little bit. Do that. That's what I tell these patients. I tell these people is continue to learn, because just like humanity evolves, so does science.
Well, I am so looking forward to hearing the talk. Of course, I heard it while you gave it, but also just in video, all edited
Amazing.
for all of us. And I do like to end, sort of the question with, who is Mark? Just like outside of the kidney disease, right? Like, tell us about you. And
Yeah.
of course, we know you're an athlete, but just like a little bit more about you, and not necessarily, right, like the medical stuff.
I love to read and play pickleball. I don't know why. I read so get away from kidney disease. While I was on dialysis, I read 67 books, and I realized I love reading. That was what got me away through all of that stuff. And now that I'm here, I love to play pickleball. I love to be present for my wife.
Mm.
I love to be present for my family. They build strength. Here's another one. I love watching magic. I wanted to be a magician growing up. I love seeing magic. I was just at the
Have a membership at the
Magic Castle. No, but I do have friends that can always get me in, and I'm really,
Magic.
really thankful for that. Yeah, I think growing up, you start to learn a lot more things that what you liked before is not what I like now. You know, that's who Mark is. Mark is his now authentic self of saying, this is the things that make me happy, and these are the things that don't. Yeah, outside of that athlete stuff as well, it's just I still have that competitive spirit. It's just embroidered in me. It what brings me joy. I love competition. You know, outside if there was no kidney disease, it would be something competitive.
Yeah.
This person sold 40 cars. I'm gonna sell 50. I don't know. I just have it in me, right?
I am not competitive at all. I hate competition.
Right.
I say I'm a lover, not a fighter.
When you're a patient and you go through all of this stuff, you lose a lot of the self love, and after going through that, I just put all my eggs in one basket and just putting my socks up to being more gentle with self, right?
Guys,
Yeah.
Marc Coronel here with us.
There it is. That's it. Yeah, Marc Coronel.
Bye.
Thank you so much.